Howdy. I'd like to make a video as a kind of an update about myself, my life, what's going on with me, things I'm thinking about, some plans for the future, mostly to do with uh, spiritual stuff, personal growth. So, where shall I start? I want to make less videos. I have said that before several times, and I think I'm really feeling it now that I don't want to, but I do vacillate. Like yesterday, I thought I'd share some recordings that I made. Sometimes I'll record myself talking about ideas that I have, and typically I feel like it's not good enough, it's not coherent or valuable, or I can't see it really helping people too much. Some parts of it, inevitably, I feel is helpful, but a lot of it is explanation and kind of excess of mulling over things and not getting to points very well. And so I feel that it's not good for other people to, um, it's not good, it can't be received too well. So, um, yeah, I did think about putting those out, but at this point I'm working on this idea of knowledge, and many other videos I've talked about this where I'm trying to understand what knowledge is, um, when you actually know something, how that works. How can I say that I know something to be true? I've heard many different things. For instance, I've heard that we all know that God is real. So, in other words, an atheist, someone who believes there's no God, will somehow have the knowledge that there is. That's a quite interesting paradox, you might say. How does that work? Um, I think people such as myself will often pretend they know something. You see a lot of ministers do this, parents do this. They pretend to know something and they don't really know. I think if I was a parent, I would try to give a disclaimer. Like I'd have a quick line like, by the way, this is my opinion, you know, before or after I said something, especially if I felt I didn't actually know it. But yeah, I'm working with this idea and I'm thinking about it, and I can't say for sure when I know something. In the Divine Truth teachings, AJ and Mary, and by the way, I'm more fond of calling Alan John Miller / Jesus AJ these days because I feel like that's yet another thing that I can't say that I know. I've called him Jesus in the past, partially as um, a test and a way to kind of uh, poke at my fear and bring up some fear, trigger myself, kind of see if I could do it, try and be brave. But I feel like I've done that enough, and the truth is, I don't. While I think he's the most moral person that I know, I like what he says. If what he says is true morality, like that's pretty okay with me. I feel that I've looked into a lot of different religions, and nothing has been as nothing has worked so well together, made so much sense, and actually touched me the way that those teachings have. So if I were to logically reason, I would say it makes a lot of sense that he is actually Jesus. But that doesn't mean that I know it. Perhaps I can emotionally know it. But anyway, my point is in those teachings, he talks about knowledge being something that you get through an emotional process. And a lot of times I feel, again, touched by something that I hear, especially from the Divine Truth teachings or from something someone else says. It's worthy to note that I often do not feel touched, and I find life very difficult sometimes because I'll hear someone say something and I feel it's just not true or it's not enough of the truth for me to say nothing. I have to register some word of disagreement, if only to prevent the person from going on assuming that I am agreeing. Because what I find a lot of people do is when they state something, they will continue um, discussing that until you present a limit in your interest in them discussing that, or you register some form of disagreement. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me. So, yeah, this whole thing of knowledge, you know. So I basically can't say that I know something emotionally. It's hard for me to say that. So I'm actually using another metric. And that metric is, have I experienced the thing that I'm claiming to know? And I don't know how many times you have to experience something before you can say you know it. I can say that I feel that I've experienced the reception of God's love. So I feel that I have experienced that a number of times, maybe, yeah, a lot of times. I feel like it's often very little, but the more remarkable times probably are, I would say like at least 6 times, something like that, some number like that. And even saying that, it's still somehow hard for me to fully acknowledge that God is real because I don't know that I can attribute, I don't know what's happening when I'm receiving God's love. It's not something that I can't, it's not something that I can say I saw. It doesn't have a color that I can see. Like I can't say, oh, I saw that there's this blue light that shot from the sky into my eyes. I saw this ray of blue light part the heavens and zoom right into my eyes. I can't say that. Um, and how do you describe a feeling? You know, wouldn't the other person have to have the same feeling to know what it is? And how do you impart, you know, with language, with, human language, which is fairly flawed, I would say. I've discussed that before. This idea that, um, you know, it's someone somewhere saying a word and, saying that word means something and people agreeing with it. And then there's also the evolution of language where over time meanings change and there's so much to it. So it's hard for me to say. I can't tell you what happened. I don't feel that I can. I feel it's also rather arrogant somehow to say that I received God's love, given my current condition, which is rather low. But yeah, um, I wonder whether I know God. Can I tell you that there is one God who created the universe and is a fully loving God, is only loving, and that God is infinite and eternal? How can I say that? I can tell you that I've been raised to believe that there was a God. I've been told many things about this God, many contradicting things, and I've kind of swum through the chaos and the noise, and I've come to the conclusion personally that if there is a God and if this God is loving, I'd like to know what that love is like, what that relationship might be like. And through that conclusion and testing that conclusion and asking personally from my heart, you know, what it would be like to receive God's love, I have felt something. And that thing that I felt was very profound and very special. And so I can say that much. But I still feel that I should doubt because I don't feel that I have an accurate picture of God. Just because I received this feeling from an entity, that doesn't mean that there's not two gods. That doesn't mean that God is always loving. It seems that he or she is. It seems that the entity that gave me that love is the kind of being that's has a very deep and wonderful, loving and giving and generous heart. That's what it seems like. But I feel it's an error to go beyond that and say that this God is fully loving, especially given the fact that I have significant trust issues. I don't trust people, and I don't know what it would take for me to trust fully, you know, the creator of the universe, even if it seems that they're good. So, yeah, I'm dealing with this issue of knowledge. And while I can't say that I know something because I've emotionally processed that knowledge, that knowledge has somehow come to me from somewhere, and I went through this emotional process inside of myself, and now I can lay claim to that fact of knowledge, that truth, and it is now in me, and I can always utilize it. It's hard for me to even understand or duplicate that. I don't know what that is. All I can say is that I'm sometimes touched by things that I hear, things that I see, things that I feel. That's about it. So I'm using this other metric, and that basically is experience. And that basically is, do I use something that might be knowledge or just an opinion or a belief, and do I act as if it's true and find that it's true in my lived experience? And the amount of times I need to be able to do something based on information that I have in order for me to know that it's true because it's working that way every time. I can't tell you right now. I don't know if it's 3 times. Sometimes I feel it's just 1 time, honestly, or 2 times. If I do this one thing, if I'm told, hey, if you have a really strong feeling for God, if you have a very strong, meaningful, sincere feeling from your heart for God, and then at that point you receive God's love, that means that that's how you get God's love. I think I might need to only do that 1 time. I have done that several times, and I've gotten the same results. There have been times where, however, I thought that I was being sincere, and I wasn't getting anything. So what does that mean? I don't know. But um, doing something and proving that doing that thing yields the same results is, I think, one way to say that you have knowledge on that subject. Um, that's knowing what you're talking about. And finally, when you do it and you find something to be true, and so you're doing it regularly because you know it to be true, because you have evidence of it being true. Like, it was true all of these times, and so let me do it again, knowing that I'm going to get that again. If I'm living like consistently by what I say is true, or what I believe is actual knowledge inside of myself, then it is knowledge. Not sure if that makes sense. But I think there's a relationship basically between action and knowledge, where if you really know something, you're going to be doing it. I think I explained that poorly, but so that was 15 minutes talking about knowledge. But that's basically an explanation for why I don't want to make many videos because I treated this channel as an outlet, wanting to talk about things that I felt other people would like to hear. But at some point along the line, I realized that I often didn't know what I was talking about. And while I liked certain ideas, I was putting it out poorly, and I didn't have a lot of evidence for what I was saying. And I'll give you some examples. For instance, there were times when I said that I was going to become a vegan. I'm still not a vegan. I think I deleted that video. I felt very strongly that I wanted to be a vegan. Looking back now, I think it's just because I wanted to look good in front of other people. I wanted to say that so that, and hopefully do that so that I could look good in front of other people. And that rarely does me any good, trying to look good in front of others. But I definitely didn't do that. Another thing is, I put a video out talking about being attracted to prepubescent girls. And yeah, I put it out in a way that was very inflammatory. I can't bring myself to delete that video because I I deleted an even better past one and I regretted that. And I'm just not ready to do that at this time. It's very personal and perhaps it's not meant for YouTube. But at this time, I'm not ready to do that. But I also put out subsequent videos talking about how I was definitely wanting to change that. But heretofore, there is no change in my life, in my attraction in that way. I'd say at least little to no change. Um, I don't feel that things have gotten too much worse, but I don't think that they've gotten better. So it's kind of about the same. Um, but that was a lie. Saying that I wanted to change and not changing was a lie. And I find there are a lot of videos that where I said things that I just absolutely regret. Sometimes I'll go back and delete videos, and if I've deleted a video, then I am fairly certain at that time that I wanted to do that. Sometimes I do delete videos and I regret it, but there are videos that I go back and look at and wonder if I should delete it, and then I find enough of a value in it to where I want to keep it up. But generally speaking, I have felt that if I, like it, the time for talk is over, and it's time for me to see if I can try and really change myself. And there's been very, very little of that. And I don't feel that I can put out much until that starts to happen. Because I've said so much, I've put out so much, and it's a lot of it's fluff, a lot of it is not very good quality, and I think people get the picture. People get the picture of who I am if they're interested. And continuing in that way, I don't think would be good for myself or others. So sometimes here and there, I might have something to say, but generally speaking, I think it's better that I not put out as much content. there's so much that I can do to occupy my time that would be more worthwhile, I feel, at this point. So, um, kind of going back on that subject really quickly, I, I kind of want to ask a question, something to give you an idea of where my mind is now, and that is, and perhaps this is way too intellectual, and it probably is given who I am, but um, how much desire does it take to actually do something? Like, if I want to be a vegan, for instance, and I become a vegan for like 10 years, whether I go back to eating milk or drinking milk and having milk products and eggs and whatnot. If I do it for 10 years, that's a significant amount of time. That means I wanted to do it to me. Um, if I decide to do that, even if I have temptations, like sometimes I have temptations. I'm a vegetarian now. I'm still a vegetarian, interestingly enough. But I still have temptations to eat meat sometimes. So the taste for it has not completely disappeared. And usually it's a convenience thing, but that's besides the point. The taste has not fully disappeared. And if the taste to do something, even if you don't actually do it, has not fully disappeared, then that means you still desire to do the thing you're stopping yourself from doing. So in the case of eating meat, if you don't eat meat for 10 years, but you still feel like eating it every now and again, that means there's still some residual desire there inside of yourself. And I quipped to a family member recently that basically my opinion, which is that if you end up doing something, so let's give a simple example. If I reach for a piece of candy, if I'm reaching for a piece of candy and I decide not to eat it, I would say that my desire not to eat it is anywhere between 51% and 99%. I reached for it, so I kind of wanted it, but I didn't do it. So my desire to do it was not strong enough for me to actually do it. So I would guess that my desire to do it was between 1% and 49%. So the majority, or the minority in that case is to not do that. I just find it very interesting that we hold different desires on any given thing, like a different level or intensity of desire. I guess intensity is a good word. And the the amount of intensity or the level of intensity is determinative to some degree. I don't know which degree. My opinion that I stated just before could be wrong. You know, you could actually do something, but then you don't really want to do it, but other things motivated you in that moment. I don't know. I don't know if anyone else talks about this in this way, but I'm very curious about all this. I don't know that anyone can give me a proper answer, but if you desire to, please email me at theodorekirkley@gmail.com. You can also go to the About page, the About tab in my YouTube channel and find that email address. But um, yeah, I wonder about that. And why I wonder about that is that, you know, changing is super important. And while I can't say that I've changed very much, I do wonder a lot about it. And I often wonder what is it going to take for me to change, to significantly change, I think of progressing as this like wild roller coaster ride, like going up. And I know roller coasters go up and then go down in every which way, and then you're having a lot of fun. But I guess in my mind, it's like up and up and up and up and up, but it's always interesting and always fun. And yeah, I always imagine if I can actually get to that place, and I haven't known that for so long. There have been a few times in my life where I've followed my passion and desire and felt very positive benefits in my life. The first of which, probably most important, is that I'm super happy, just super happy doing the thing I'm wanting to do at that moment. Very, very happy. And that's a strange commodity, you know, especially in this world, I feel. So, um, yeah, I ask myself questions about desire. Where am I now in my desire to change, and how do I inch that number higher? And again, this could be way too intellectual and may not be helping me, and you know, I'll keep praying to God about those kinds of issues. But um, yeah, just a general question. Not wanting to help anybody with that question, just putting it out there. Um, I guess I'll say one quick thing about more mundane things, really, ultimately, which is that I have some dreams as far as buying land in New Mexico or some such place and restoring the land. I want to buy dry, arid land and restore it. And yeah, that's what I want to do. And I think I can achieve that if things go on their present course anyway, within a year and a half. I can at least say that I have land. Um, the next steps would be to build a structure that I can dwell in and have shelter with, you know, have shelter by. And other steps would be building a system uh, for recycling my own waste. But I would also, in many cases, you have to have a septic tank. It's like part of getting a permit for building a structure, like a house. And or in the case that I'm thinking of, one option is also to build a privy. You don't have to necessarily use the privy, but you would have to build it anyway in order to have a permit to build. In New Mexico, that's like pretty much the case in the entire state. However, I'm going to investigate soon and see if I can um, what the what laws and regulations apply on native land. I might actually see if I can get some property on native land. Um, I'm thinking about um, what it would be like to have a relationship with someone. I've had some relationships in the past, never too long. Right now, I feel like even if I wasn't with my soulmate, it's still better than what I am experiencing right now, which is a lot of isolation. And yeah, I just thought this an hour ago. So basically, my feelings are that having a lover, as it were, someone that I can be close to and connect with and have a semi intimate relationship with would still be better than what I am experiencing now. Um, and I think even better than that would be um, having a soulmate relationship. But I really do not feel that I have much desire, again, going to that whole desire thing, for that at this point. I don't see much changing or moving in that area. Of course, it all starts with like a seed, and that seed buds and grows. But at this point, I can't say that. But I wonder about that, and I ask about that, and um, yeah. As far as work, employment, and following my passions, I am thinking about making movies again. I think that if I did anything like that, anything in media, some things that I'd like to do would be to start a company, so that everything is kind of part of that company, and I can put all my work, you know, in this one basket. I can't give you a good explanation for why that's important at this point, but I feel that it is important. And beyond that, starting very small with the media projects that I tackle. Um, yeah. I could work on bigger things, but I think I'd have to start small in those areas. For instance, working on a script and talking to people and investigating, doing mild investigations and dream building, deciding what I'd want to do as far as um, like where it would be shot, um, what I want the set to be like. What I want the set to be like is super important, but how I want to build the story, you know, how to make a really good story. I think a lot of movies are made in a short period of time, and I think to make a really good movie, I'd really have to take my time, and I'd want to do that. I'd want to take my time. Another thing would be, um, as far as making movies, making it donation based. I think there's not much room or belief that that can be done. In other words, funding a movie through donations. Uh, I don't think that's done a lot, but I think it can be done, even though it hasn't been done maybe that much. Maybe only with smaller projects, but feature films, not really. Um, it would mean saying no to a lot of people that would want to invest in the movie and want a return for their investment. I would have to say no to that. It would also mean saying no to people who want creative control over the project once they give money, because I really feel that I couldn't give that away because it's too important to do it correctly. But also, I think about things like how I would pay people. I think I would have people voluntarily um, work, and then I would give them money based on how I felt. I try to do it in an ethical way, and I have no idea how I would do that at this point. How to do that ethically is a big question for myself, but that's another thing I could look at and look into. I've also thought of this rather novel idea, which is having someone on set and potentially throughout the entire process of making the film that could consult and help me make decisions on what is basically the most moral thing to do with hiring someone, with talking about the ethos of the film, what we want to do, talking about emotional issues that I have and emotional issues that come up in other people and what to do about that, how to handle, for lack of a better word, discipline. I think discipline's really important. I think there's a better word out there, but basically, when someone is acting very poorly, which will happen, how to go about handling that. Having someone at my side to help with all that, I think is really important. Having someone that I can ask questions about with regards to story elements, I think that would be also important. But I think I would have to make the final decision on elements of the story. In other words, while I while there might be a problem with a portrayal or something in the story, some arc of the story or element of the story, while it might not be the most moral thing, I might even decide at that point, even if I know that, to still go ahead and do it that way anyway, for whatever reason. So I wouldn't give them any real control over the story, but over um, the goings on and the making of the film, I would probably want to give them a lot of control. So, yeah, there's an idea of where my head is as far as more physical things and more mundane things. I think it's not so more mundane to talk about your passion, but I think what's really important, like what happens physically out in the world, is not as amazing as what's going on inside of yourself ultimately. when I think about the things that I want in my life, I'm trying more and more to think about manifesting like positive changes in my character and my not my personality. I can't really change that, but to maybe grow in more into my personality, my actual personality that God gave me. Um, Doing those things, getting rid of self judgment, working on my addictions and dealing with those things. I'd love to, I'd love to feel some fear and remove some fear. I have no idea how that would work, and it's that seems like an impossible thing. Like that's one thing I can't say that I've done. The most I've done once was feeling fear for about 30 minutes and breathing through it. I don't even know if I released it though. I don't remember feeling super relieved after those 30 minutes. But um, while I felt fear, I don't know that I have really released it. But to release fear and to see a change in my life that suggests that that fear has been released, that would be quite extraordinary, I feel. Um, and this is even further away, I feel, but to feel some deep seated sadness and actually see myself heal some problem inside my physical body, that would be pretty extraordinary too. But I can't say any of that, like the fear or the sadness, without talking about the facade. And that's another, like, really big thing that I feel like it's the biggest NFL linebacker that I'm supposed to tackle. And I'm like, it seems way too complicated at this point. Being completely honest, um, the idea of deconstructing the facade seems impossible. It seems way too complex for my poor little brain, for my poor little mind. But that must not be true because God knows what He's doing, right? So I have to remember that. I can't believe that. I have to pray about that more. So, but yeah, the facade, understanding it and having the courage to be more truthful and no matter what happens and like doing things I wouldn't normally do to like trigger my fear and hopefully try and feel some of that fear. I think that's all part of it somehow, but I can't say much about that. But it's definitely a one of the things that I really need to go after. So there you have it. I hope this video worked. I feel decently okay about what I've said and how I've said it. So I think I shall leave it there.